Welcome to the Nobody Knowz podcast with Kyle Nehring. Join us for conversations with local changemakers and hear the stories that don't always get told. It'll be honest, messy and beautiful, touching and humorous. Slow down, pour a glass, and pull up a chair. This is the Nobody Knowz podcast.
Welcome to Nobody Knowz. I'm your host, Kyle Nehring. I'm going to start right off with a Zamzo tip of the week. I guess it's technically we're at step 2 of the Zamzo's lawn program, but I want to cast that aside. If you remember the program, that's awesome. You know what you're supposed to be doing. I want to talk to the person who is not a member of the lawn program, who is thinking, well, I don't want to do the whole program. It's probably too late because I heard that they had step 1, yada, yada, yada. And I want to help you hit the easy button, because you do not have to be a part of the Zamzo lawn program. We created that to make it easy and kind of a no-brainer. We send you texts and we tell you when to apply things and all that fun stuff. If you are not on the program, you can still have a gorgeous lawn, and you can start now. If you haven't done it yet, that's totally fine. Just because we're in step 2, you can start right now. And you just start with what we call our spring and summer lawn food. It is a product that my dad, Jim Zamzo, created. And he created it because back in the day, this would be like in the 70s, when he and his brother had taken over as the 3rd generation of Zamzos running the business. And they had brought in the Scott's Lawn program. And my dad actually had gone back east and he had studied at the Scott's, I don't even know what it's called, but had learned how the program worked. And he had brought it in. And for years, it had been, really what we had sold. And then he started having customers coming in who had been on the lawn program, on the Scott's program for, a couple of years. And they were starting to see some problems. And my dad, there were all the solutions. And so he would say, well, this is what you need for that. And they're like, we did that. It's still not working. So that was when my dad began to realize that maybe that program wasn't built for our soils. So it's the beautiful lawns that people think about that are lush and green and gorgeous, that are in like magazines. Those are in the Midwest, where there's carbon in the soil. Not in Boise, Idaho, where we are lacking in carbon and where we have this clay and we have all these, alkaline soils, and it's very different here. And so Dad began to develop a new program that would work for our soils, that would keep from, and the other thing too is he wanted it to be natural, because when you are using chemical fertilizers, you're slowly eroding the soil. You're making it worse over time. You're depleting it. And he wanted to do it in a way, he wanted to do something where when you were putting something on the lawn, it was making the lawn beautiful, but it was improving the soil underneath it so that it was self-sustaining. So that's where the whole program came from. He didn't have a lot of resources. We happen to have a feed mill, so he decided to use products and ingredients from our feed mill. So, and this is, we would love to say that, it's all natural, it's safe for your pets and kids and everything, which is completely true. He didn't do it that way on purpose necessarily. It's a wonderful, we're glad, it's a huge benefit. And now we wouldn't have it any other way. But he did it initially because the only ingredients he had were feed ingredients. And that's, that's what he had. And of course, that makes it safe to eat because it's feed ingredients. So, and then I'll tell you this really quick story. When my brother and I were teenagers, when he was developing this, he decided we lived near Fairmont Junior High School. That was the junior high school we went to, and that's where we were at the time. And there was a huge field there. And you could actually like drive right along Northview, and you could drive right, there was only a sidewalk and then this huge lawn. And so it made it easy for him in the nighttime to grab his spreaders and his various formulas that he was trying and draw stripes of various different things. And then what would happen, so he'd do that at nighttime, and then the next morning he would be like, well, not the next morning, but like, a couple of weeks later, he'd be like, okay, kids, hop in the car, come on, Mom, or all of us getting in the car. And he would say, okay, I'm going to drive down. And he could then drive right along the sidewalk and say, okay, do you think the first stripe is better, or the second stripe, or the third stripe? Yeah, so we were the ones who were like, oh, we think the third stripe. But here's the thing. My brother and I we couldn't tell anybody because we were humiliated, because we were teenagers and our dad was striping up our junior high school lawn Yeah, so we had to keep it a secret and pretend like we had no idea what was going on. In the meantime, Dad's super excited about this thing he's developed. And anyway, the rest is history. It's a wonderful product. The best part about it is that you are not going to be deteriorating your soil when you're using it. And that's huge. That means that, you can use it, you can go off of it for a while, it sustains, and you can start back again. And unlike chemicals where you're kind of causing problems to the soil and you have to continue to keep adding the chemicals, this is self-sustaining. So there you go. If you're not on the program, come see us at Zamzows. We'll happily help you. Any of our 12 stores in Treasure Valley. That was kind of a long beginning. And I'm very excited about our guest. So I apologize for prolonging this. My little story leading in is that I was on a plane ride. Probably, it sounds like I just took a little ride. I was going somewhere on an airplane. I was actually on an Alaska Airlines flight. And my husband and I, they offer up various goodies for you. And one of the things was these potato chips. And they say Idaho on the front of them. And I'd seen them around, but that was like the first moment that I was like, this is kind of cool, because we were flying away from Idaho. So I was like, well, this is really kind of cool. We got this whole Idaho thing going. And then of course, I love them. They're so delicious. And so it was a great experience. And so I'm very excited to have Kyle Nehring on the podcast today. Thank you for being here, Kyle. So you are the founder of Teton Valley Brands.
Yep, for better or for worse.
I have so many questions for you, as I always do. Before we get going too far, could you just kind of give us a quick background of you so we kind of understand who you are, and then we'll dive into what you do?
My family's all from the West, Utah and Idaho. And in fact, my great-grandfather, which we named the company after his farm, is just near the Tetons, hence Teton Valley Brands. However, my dad took a job in Indiana, and so I grew up in the middle of those lovely Midwest grass, homes, no sprinklers, and yet our lawn flourished.
Yes.
Right? And so that's actually where I grew up. As an adult, most of his children came out here, and so we ended up landing out here and ended up being here in Idaho. And while going to school in Idaho, that's where the birth of this company came from. Realizing the value of the Idaho brand and how incredible it is. And, you go anywhere literally in the world and you think Idaho, you think potatoes. Mm-hmm. Why does nobody use the Idaho brand in the snack aisle? And so that's just a little bit about kind of how we got started. But yeah, I'm actually kind of a Midwest kid, very much involved in farming communities, and yeah, ended up finding a beautiful lady at college that I married, and we ended up out here as well. So,
nice.
Yeah.
It's funny, the whole Midwest thing. I remember when I went to college in California, and all of my friends were like, oh, you're from the Midwest. And I'm like, well, technically we say Pacific Northwest. Like that's kind of where that's identify. Now my daughter's in New York City, and she's getting the same thing. It's like, oh, well, you're in the Midwest. And she's like, no, technically. But I think that part of it is how we behave. I think there's a Midwest sort of way of being. And I think that Boise and Idaho fit very nicely into that. We are kind of that welcoming, sort of, unassuming and, kind, and, all the wonderful traits, I think, that we consider Midwesterners to be. So I think we identify that way.
I totally agree.
So what was happening in your life when the idea for Teton Valley Brands, when did what was happening in your life?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, I was going to school and I was studying entrepreneurship. I had kind of this crazy teacher who was an entrepreneur and had ran a bunch of companies, and he just inspired me. I just was so impressed with what you can do with companies, and also it's a way for me, as I'm growing and developing, right? I was a very young man at the time. Like, who do I want to become, and what do I want to do, and how am I going to, the world is in front of you. And I realized, I think I want to be an entrepreneur. However, I'm a broke college student. I have no idea, right? I have no idea what I'm doing, right? And even though I've taken a class or two or whatever it is, but I had this idea, an Idaho potato chip, right? Like, surely that's got to do something. Once again, know nothing about business, have no money. The only thing I'm certain of with the idea is to build a potato chip factory is going to be really expensive, and I have no idea how I would do that.
Wow. Okay, let me back up just for a second about entrepreneurship in general. So, there are classes. Like, sorry if I'm dense, but I didn't realize. Like, I know people will go for a business degree or whatever, but you were taking specific classes on entrepreneurship.
Yeah, it was a business degree with an emphasis in entrepreneurship. And so, yes, there are very specific classes. There's actually 2 or 3 different professors who were retired from business who had their own companies and had come. And so, yeah, it just kind of was a perfect storm to create entrepreneurs.
I'm kind of imagining in my head what a class on entrepreneurship would be like. And I'm giggling because, first of all, it's different for everybody, right? I think that's by its very nature. But also, it is the wild, wild west of like careers. Like, there really aren't like awesome rule books for that kind of stuff. And I think there's probably an internal spark that you would even want to do that. There's some people who are like, forget that. I would never even want to do it. So have you always kind of been like that?
Yeah, we were talking before the show started, and I said, I'm kind of, I don't know, an eccentric, kind of a unique jumble of a person, lots of interesting strengths, lots of interesting holes, and I like who I am, but I'm very unique in a lot of ways. Hence, I mean, there's not a lot of people that are like, I can start a potato chip company, right? Like, and I will say, you're exactly right. There's lots of different personalities. Only certain people I would recommend actually taking that route. I happened to marry one who was very not that way, right? God bless my wife. She is fantastic, but she should have married a dentist. That would have been fantastic, right?
See, I also married an opposite personality, and I mean, you probably have this too, where like, what would you do without her? She does all the things that you probably don't do very well, and you do the things that she doesn't do very well, right? So it's a nice balance. But I think there is, we have to be welcoming to that. I think when we're very, very young, it's sometimes difficult to see somebody who's that different and be like, yeah, that seems like a good partner. So I'm always very grateful that I made one really good decision, at least that I know of. Yeah. I was hooking up with somebody who's, that fills in all of my gaps. I'm amazed at how his brain works. So congratulations that you did that. That's fantastic.
That is for sure. I can say that I made one good decision as well. So
yes. All right. So, what can you think of like a specific moment when you're like, okay, I think I've got the pieces together here. I'm doing this.
Yeah, so I actually had to table the idea for a little while. So this is back in 2010. I really was just like I described, broke, had no idea really what I was doing, right? Took a few classes. So I actually ended up working for another consumer packaged goods company, which is essentially another company that has a product that sits on the shelf, right? And it was a food product. It's actually a plant-based protein supplement company. So similar, but very different also. But it was a young company with only 50 employees. And that was really the spark that I needed to give me enough confidence to consider doing something like this. And so what it essentially allowed me to do was see the entire organization. I literally knew all 50 people in the organization. And so I understood, well, this is what a sales team looks like at this size company. This is what the operations look like. We ended up purchasing a manufacturing company. And so we took that on. So I learned this is what taking on manufacturing looks like. And it really was just a lot of things, a lot of holes that I had. I ended up in college, my actual degree was in supply chain management. And the only reason why was because I thought that would give me and a wide enough angle on all parts of the company, because I felt like that was kind of the heartbeat of the company, whether that was right or wrong. But to give you an idea of kind of how unique I am, I was considering supply chain and I was considering marketing. And most people are like, those are like opposites. Like, what are you talking about, right? Like, they are, and that's genuinely what I was doing. And actually, what I do right now today fits really well into both of those, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I think about listeners who might be thinking about doing something like what you're doing, what you are currently doing, and kind of it's nice to see that it's not as clean. Like, so I think sometimes, especially young people, just kind of like, okay, I'm going to do A and then B, and then I'll land at C, and then I'll be live happily ever after. And that certainly is not how these things go. It's not quite as linear.
No, not at all. And certainly not for me. And there are entrepreneurs that probably are able to do that. And, there are so many opportunities out there, so many exciting ventures. I could never do what, some of these tech entrepreneurs are doing, right? Where I think it is a little bit more very specific skill sets. For me, that's what's kind of fun about the games that we're playing.
Yeah.
That I kind of have this funny view of money in general, where it's just kind of a game, and, it's okay if you lose. It's okay if you win, well, you can restart the game if you need to.
I think that's a really wise way of going into these kind of things. I think mostly because if we grab onto something too tightly, hold it too and panicky, that sometimes the energy just doesn't flow for us to be able to get the things done that we need to get done. So we have to be able to loosen our grip a little bit. And if you were like, everything's riding on this, then it's really hard to let go of your grip and be like, okay, I've got to let some things flow here and see how it goes.
Yep.
Yeah, that's so you did this whole thing with your wife, right? Like she's been a part of this whole process.
Yeah, she has been. So when we originally started, it was actually mostly my brother and I, and then both of our wives were supporting and helping quite a bit. My brother, we went our separate ways several years ago now. He was very early on. And that's a whole nother story. Maybe we'll get into some of that, but no, my wife has been absolutely integral. Couldn't have done this without her, couldn't have done it without her support. I mean, in fact, just to paint a little bit of a picture, when we decided, hey, we've got to give this thing a real shot. We're a couple of years into it. We've got to go full time. We've got to build out a proper manufacturing facility. We ended up selling our house and living off of those proceeds. We've got, you mentioned it's, messy. Our story is super messy. It's full of, those kinds of risks, loading up credit cards and then paying them off and loading them up again. And just super messy. But so much props to my wife. Once again, we had to sell our house. That actually came, and I apologize. I'll probably just get a hair emotional. That was 7 days after we had our fourth child.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah. So she's a champ. Like, genuinely, she is. She's been, for her not to have the kind of personality that embraces uncertainty like this, she's been amazing. And so every bit a partner all along the way, even if she's not been in the day-to-day all along the way. So,
yeah. I love that. I hope that for everybody. That everybody finds a partner that sees our dreams and will stand by our side and help us achieve them. I just if the world would be a better place if we all had that, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Oh my gosh. This is a great story. So let's continue down the line here. So you've got this idea. It's messy. You're doing all these things. At what point were you like, when did you make your first chip? Like, when did that take place?
Yeah. So early on, it was a side hustle very much. And so we sacrificed our spare room in our basement and we put up a potato chip manufacturing, thing there. That was in 2017. We tried to go as bootstrapped and as scrappy as you can be, right? We're still making a great product, right? The goal always from day one was, how do we look as beautiful and as professional on the shelf without, people realizing we're just this super tiny, scrappy startup? And maybe that's not even a good thing. Sometimes people want to support you if they realize how small you are. But that was the goal. And I think we did a pretty good job of that. But yeah, so 2017 was when we started. And it was late nights, very much a side hustle, working full time with this other company. And that company was fantastic. It's Sun Warrior, by the way, a little shout out to them. They were very supportive. My boss actually was kind of coaching me through because he enjoyed this kind of stuff, and so that was fantastic. So many resources, and that's also a theme of our story is your network is so important. I know it's kind of cliche in business to say network, right? But really the people that you partner with and connect with, the community that's behind you, that is so integral to success for an entrepreneur.
Isn't it interesting that I find this anyway, that you're going along and you'll meet somebody and then you go on a little further and you're like, oh, that person has the keys to this part of the kingdom. And you're like, and then for me, I always look backward and I'm like, holy cow, how did that even happen? How did I even meet that person at the time that I did and got to know them, chose to invest in a little bit of that relationship. And then now it's come full circle and they have some things that I need, or they could help me, or I could help them. Sometimes it just feels like there's an extra hand in there that's helping things along sometimes, just to make sure that we're meeting the right people. And do you ever feel that way?
Oh, yes, absolutely. There's a lot of ways you could take that. But yeah, no, I think I would just say faith in general is something that any entrepreneur needs to have, whether that's actually in, a higher power, which is very much what I believe. But either way, I mean, you have to take a lot of steps into the dark to figure out, where you're going. And yeah, that's another way that I like to think about that. We've had a lot of very lucky moments. For example, we launched a product right at the time that the Albertsons Market Street stores were launching, right? And they were literally looking for, how do we fill these shelves with great local products? And they were like, oh, ta-da, an Idaho potato chip for our beautiful new Idaho Market Street stores. And so, it sounds... It sounds like, oh, that was lucky. And it was lucky. However, we had built everything beforehand. And so if you're not doing something, it's really hard to get lucky.
Yeah.
But yeah, once again, definitely an invisible hand helping all along the way. So.
It's interesting. Just as you're telling me that story, I remember when the marketplace, and it was the one, I think, in Meridian that had opened up that but we also go to the one that's down on Broadway. But long story short, I remember going in there and experiencing it for the first time and seeing your potato chips and thinking how perfect it was. I'm like, how perfect is this? This is a perfect fit. And really was part of my whole experience of the Albertsons Marketplace initial, just, getting the initial impression, I guess. So that's funny that you mentioned that. I'm like, wow, yeah. And I don't even remember, maybe there was a huge display or something. I don't remember exactly that part, but I definitely remember the brand. So it was like, it's interesting.
Yeah, no, and that was go back to 2010. That's my young entrepreneur brain saying, surely there's something here, right? We've got this Idaho brand. Potato chips are a thing. A lot of people like them, right? Surely we can do something. And that, you're exactly right. And we've been able to accomplish that. Now, that being said, we thought just put a chip on the shelf and it says Idaho on it. It's going to be great, right? Everyone's, yeah, right. We couldn't have been more wrong about how difficult it is. But that's where you start, right? And most entrepreneurs, I mean, there's always a certain level of naivete. You wouldn't get into it if you realized what it actually took. But I still recommend people go for it because life's an adventure, and it's a beautiful journey. So
well, and I think that at least I've spoken to quite a few entrepreneurs that there is sort of almost a heart pulling, where there are days like that. That's what keeps you going, and you're kind of like don't even really know what's next, but you know you're going to keep taking steps that direction. Yeah. And even though they're like odds stacked against you and maybe financial situations and, all the things you can think of, but it still carries you forward because you have this sort of internal knowing, like a guiding light, if you will.
Yeah.
Does that sound familiar?
That is exactly. And to paint a little bit more of a picture of kind of what the last several years have been, food companies have a very hard time becoming profitable, right? Once again, we sold our house. We went in full time. We had some money. It wasn't a ton, but it was enough to get going. And we literally had year after year after year after year of kind of wandering, just what you're suggesting, right? Where it's where does this go? What are we doing? We thought, let's put this on the shelf. It's going to sell really well. Great. We don't need to be number one, but we just, need to compete. Well, that didn't work out as well. And our costs, of course, were higher than what we were anticipating.
Always,
and,
right?
Yeah. And how are we going to, just pay for ourselves? Just even to survive. We went a couple of years without a paycheck. And then a very, very modest paycheck for a couple more years. We're talking, we're talking $40,000 a year, right?
Yeah.
Like nothing, essentially. And it was really hard. It's nice talking to you now. We can laugh about it a lot more. But if we're talking years of just like, when does this end? Where are we doing? Like, what are we doing? It's just a chip company. Like, why are we doing this? Right. But to kind of bring it back full circle where we were at, we were talking about people and community. Mm-hmm. That's actually a huge transitioning point for us was when we met the current CEO of Teton Valley Brands, which is Matt Price. And Matt was the unlock for us to be able to really change directions in the company, to help us be connected into the community so much more so. And just put a lot of faith in us. We put a lot of faith in him. And the story's been very different. It's still been very challenging for the last 3 years or so. But the game has changed a lot for us, which has been really fun.
Isn't it amazing that you bring in that one person or several specific people in the right place at the right time can make such a big difference? And I think especially when you're being scrappy, trying to get things done, and we have our vision and we think we've got it all, and then you bring in somebody with a little different perspective or knowledge base, or have done something that you haven't done yet, and so already have paved the way. You bring them in, it's like magic. Mm-hmm. Holy cow! And for me anyway, I get these very warm, fuzzy feelings about these humans that are willing to help out and get in the middle of things and change the trajectory, and it's awesome. The people part is incredible to me. How about you?
Absolutely. I mean, that's really what all this comes down to at the end of the day. It's the people. The people inside our company are so important to me, but even just to connect throughout, right? I mean, I couldn't agree more. And that's what Matt was. He risked a lot coming into a small startup, bringing his network of connections, right? But he saw the vision and was able to grab a hold, and we've been able to do some really cool things. Yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about it in a minute, but we've got some really fun new products that have really changed the game for us. At the beginning, the holy grail of what we thought was, this Idaho brand. And we still think there's a lot there, but it really didn't do what we needed it to do. And these new products have changed the landscape for us.
Well, I think this is a great time to talk about that. Let's dive into that because we talked about it a little bit before we started the podcast, and I didn't have any idea that you guys were kind of venturing into these different realms. So yeah, let's talk about some of the new products.
Yeah. So Matt was at a party with some friends here locally, and knew some of the people over at AgriBeef and Snake River Farms. And so they got talking, and they said, you know what would be a really fun, unique product is a Wagyu beef tallow potato chip. So a potato chip cooked in beef tallow from our Snake River farms. And they got chatting about it and said, this could actually work. It's interesting. There was a few people, kind of dabbling in it. And so it was just an idea. Kind of shelved it for a little bit, but we thought, if we got some downtime at the facility, we could try to figure this out. Fast forward 6 months, we end up making our first batch of Wagyu tallow potato chips. And we taste those and we are just blown away. We're like, what are we tasting? This isn't even a potato chip anymore. Like, this is a totally different thing. It was so fun to be like, holy cow. Like, we have discovered something, right? And I think a lot of people, as they open up those Snake River farms, so that partnership was huge. But yeah, so the product, to get back to the question, the product is a partnership with Snake River Farms, a Wagyu beef tallow, just classic salted chip. You would think, oh yeah, I'm sure it tastes like a potato chip. It does. But it is so much more rich and decadent. It's absolutely delicious.
Can you talk a little bit about tallow? If you're, I don't mean to insult people, but if you're aware at all, you're hearing tallow coming up a lot lately, and interestingly enough, I mean, I think about the history of fat and tallow things. I mean, all these things that we sort of like shunned back in probably the 90s, and now all of a sudden we're realizing, oh wait, maybe this is a better way. So can you talk just a little bit? I realize that's not entirely the point of the show, but just to bring people up to speed about that.
Yeah. So tallow, it's just, everybody's familiar with steak, and you've got the trimmings, the fat. You can render that into an oil that is tallow. And so essentially you cook it and then you pull out the oil portion of it. A lot of people are familiar with it. It's very trendy right now in like lotions and hand creams and face creams and all that kind of stuff. And by the way, those are fantastic products. I'd highly recommend those. But it's a type of oil, right? Essentially. But
it's an oil that the body recognizes as a food. It's not a manufactured, altered.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So I think that's part of the whole whole food sort of thing.
Correct. It's something that our bodies have been familiar with for a very long time, whereas some of these processed oils, some of them are genetically modified, some of them are bred a lot to be able to create, the highest yield, right? And this, whereas tallow is, very much something that our bodies are familiar with.
Right.
So seed oils is kind of a category that people are just realizing, hey, I need to be aware of this.
Right.
Some people will say they're absolutely terrible. Others are, maybe not in that direction. I'm probably somewhere in the middle. I think there is use, but it's definitely not what our bodies want.
Right.
And, part of my personal journey, I've eaten way too many potato chips in my life. Right. And most of those are with probably the most premium sunflower oil you can buy, but it's still sunflower oil. Mm. And that's not been healthy for me, that with a lot of stress and, exorbitant amounts of cortisol in my system, all that kind of stuff. And I used to joke, for years I was on the fryer, literally cooking myself, and we were trying to figure it out, and I would constantly be eating chips because I'm perfecting the recipe, right? And I used to joke I eat potato chips for breakfast, but anyway, not what I would recommend for anyone. But yeah, so that gives you an idea of tallow. Really a great product, a fantastic product. I am very much a believer in that it is what's good for your body. That like everything, in moderation,
Yeah. Okay, so that's an awesome new development. That chip is delicious. So what else? What else have you got going on?
Yeah, so in that same space, in the tallow space, we took a big jump, and we decided to test out tortilla chips. And that's probably news to a lot of people. It's not under the Teton Valley Brands name, and so it's a little bit unique. It's a standalone brand. It's called Tallow and Stone. But yeah, it's a really great packaging, really great product. And I actually grew up mostly on tortilla chips myself. A lot of people are very much tortilla chip fans, tortilla chip and salsa or nachos or whatnot. Absolutely amazing. So yeah, we've ventured into this. We found a local supplier for tortillas, and we've got some really great product pumping out of our facility. And
the flavors sound amazing.
The flavors are amazing. I don't know if this would be the best for audio, but we could literally snack on these, and they're so good you could probably hear how delicious they are.
I don't know, a couple of minutes ago, my stomach started growling, and I kind of looked around and nobody knows. I'm like, okay, I don't know if you heard that, but my stomach literally is growling talking about this. So we should have had breakfast.
So we've got 3 different flavors. Our classic tortilla chip, right? Just salted, just 3 ingredients: Wagyu beef tallow, corn, and salt. And then our other 2 are really unique and really fun and really delicious. Number 1, cilantro lime. Mm-hmm. And I'm not even joking. That flavor, you could replace a meal with a bag, and yeah,
sounds so good.
Absolutely delicious. Just a beautiful savory flavor. You've got. I would compare it to the cilantro lime dressing that you would dip a chip in. Just really yummy. And then the other flavor, which is really unique, maybe equally as delicious. I'm amazed. So I take a lot of pride in these flavors. Part of my role, a huge part of my role, is flavor innovation and new products. And I was able, with some help of some foodies, I would say, develop these flavors. And the other flavor is called horchata churro. Yeah, I know that's.
I probably don't need to know about this.
So it's really a unique experience, because when people think about tortilla chips, they don't think about a sweet product. It is, horchata and churro, very sweet products, delicious products. I brought a bag home to my wife. And my wife's a lovely, tiny little thing. And she admitted to me, she said, I have never finished an entire bag of chips in my life. And I just destroyed that whole thing. Do you have any more? Yeah.
So. Yeah, that sounds delicious.
Yeah. So I have a hard time deciding which one is my favorite. Those both are out of this world delicious.
It's fun to have you describe them. I feel like we talked about this scrappy entrepreneurship, and it kind of got you through. You held on, you got the thing rolling, but now it seems like maybe you've shifted into a position and an area where you can get creative in a different way with the flavors and that sort of thing. Does that ring true?
Absolutely, it does. No, and that's in my story. There are parts where it can get heavy, right? Where it's like, we had years, and I've done a few podcasts where I'm just talking about like, oh, I can't, like, and it was hard and it was heavy. But we have turned a corner for sure. And it is fun. And the creative side of me very much gets to express itself through our new products. The Tallow and Stone product in particular is fun because I took that one essentially from 0 to 100 from every aspect of it, right? So the brand, the product launch, designing the flavors. And that's because I've been able to hand off some things to different people as we've grown. And like I said, so Matt, our CEO, is a fantastic guy. He's not the creative guy like I am. I'm really not CEO material, which is totally fine by me, right? Like, if you were to put me in like the sales role of the company, I can create a product that will sell. I'm not going to do a great job at selling the product myself. Like it's just not what's in my wheelhouse. And I think that's okay as entrepreneurs. In the early days, you kind of have to do everything, but really you have to, where you're going to be the most successful is where you're naturally, inclined. And
that is, I hope our listeners rewind. That's old school for go backwards in time. Listen to that again, because there are so many of us, I think, who should all over ourselves. We go to school for something in particular, so we should stay in there. Our parents think that this, so we should do that, whatever. And I think in the end, doing those things and honoring what you're naturally good at, what your heart calls you to do, what your brain is wired to do, it should be a non-judgmental world in the sense that we get to do those sorts of things. Because when we do, that's where magic happens. When we stay within that joy and our natural abilities, like that's when magic happens. So I love it that you said that, and I love it that you're getting to do that. It makes me happy for you. Yeah,
no, it's been such a shift. Yeah, it's been fantastic.
It's so great. So looking forward to the next chapter, there's no doubt you're doing that as an entrepreneur. What do you see kind of coming down the pike?
Yeah. So these products I mentioned are brand new. We've done some tests in some stores, but we're anticipating a lot of potential with these. And really, even just a classic tortilla chip that's got a great brand, that's got a great story, that really is a good product. Even just one flavor, there's a lot you can do with just that, right? And so I would say, as we look to the next chapter, a lot of it is how do we get the word out that we've got these great products, and where do we go? We've been playing around with some different accounts here in the Pacific Northwest and West in general. For example, a really exciting one. We did a test launch with our Snake River Farms beef tallow potato chip with Costco.
Oh.
Yeah, in the Pacific Northwest, so about 70 stores, give or take. But that was a huge step for us.
Yes,
right?
That's a massive step. Congratulations.
Thank you. Costco doesn't just take you in and say, "Hey, you're permanent, you're here forever." No, but we're working on that relationship. They love the product, they love what we're doing, and we're really excited where that's going to take us. And I could echo that with all of these other new products. Oh, and there are actually a couple others that I do need to mention.
Yes, please.
So one other very unique thing that was fun for me, once again, as the creative behind it, designing. We have recently launched a waffle cut potato chip. And so, if you can imagine essentially a Chick-fil-A French fry that's a lot thinner, but has those waffles, those windows, it completely changes the experience as you're eating it, and just the texture. It's absolutely lovely. And so we've got 2 new flavors. We did a test last year on it just to see what would happen with a truffle salt waffle chip. It was fantastic. I still have wonderful people. I'm thinking of Whitney in particular on my team, who just was like, "You have to relaunch that flavor. It's so fantastic." Yeah, she's great. And we're working on that. We launched 2 new flavors just recently. One we are calling Idaho Ranch, so it's just a ranch flavored chip. Fantastic product. And the other one that I once again take a lot of pride in, Huckleberry Barbecue.
Oh, no. That sounds phenomenal.
Yeah, it's really a unique chip. You almost have to try it to even wrap your mind around what that would taste like. It's so fun and delicious. Yeah,
I will be trying that soon. Sounds awesome. So I like to always kind of imagine that there are young people that are listening to this podcast that are thinking about like what they're going to do next with themselves. If they're like, I love what this guy's doing, I want to do something similar to that, what would you say? What would you say to that person?
If they are excited and this gets them going, I would say, one, you're never going to be ready. So just go for it. I would say number two, this is a quote that I like. Henry Ford, I believe, said it originally, but whether you believe you can or you can't, either way, you're right. And so, I would say go for it. Reach out. There's tons of people who want to help, who want to support you. You can reach out to me. Like literally, you can reach out to me. I'll talk to you and let you know my thoughts. So I had a professor once again in college. It was really an important time for me while I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. He said essentially those two things that I was talking about. But he said the biggest thing for a company is you just don't let it die. It's like, that's like, if you can figure out how to keep it alive, you're smart enough, you're capable enough, you can pivot, you can change what you need to change. Just don't let it die and you'll make it.
Wow. Yeah, that's great advice.
Yeah, like literally that phrase got me through a couple of years, right? Where it's just like, we just can't die. Like that's the only thing. Like I don't care if we are doing great this year or whatever. It just has to make it. And I think it's sage advice.
I do too. There are lots of layers between where we might be and actual death. And I think sometimes we forget that, you know, like if something goes a little awry, you're like, it's going down, and like, no, it probably isn't. Like hold tight. And so I think there are a lot of layers there before you actually would hit to the point where you're like, all right, this is, and each time you can kind of bounce off the bottom too and get yourself back up again. I think I hear that story over and over again. So I'm going to take a quick mid episode break here to thank our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Zamzows, your local source for garden, pet, and planet-friendly products. As a thank you to our Nobody Knowz listeners, use code Teton at checkout on Zamzows.com and you can receive 10% off your online order. The discount applies automatically and is valid online only and excludes lawn programs. And it runs through August 31st of 2026. You can buy online, you can pick up in store at any of our 12 Treasure Valley locations. So visit Zamzows.com and let's grow something good.
Nobody knows like Zamzows.
So we're going to shift gears a little bit here. We're going to the segment called Sharing is Caring. A little more rapid fire. You ready? Okay. What's a local product, brand, or business that you really admire right now?
I got several that I admire. One company that's doing a great job is Earth Beverage. I don't know if you know those guys.
Absolutely.
They're almost famous here because they should be, because they're such good people and have such great products. So absolutely those guys. Dilly's Pickles is another local one. It was a really great story, great company. Awesome.
Love those answers. How about a go-to snack food that you always keep stocked?
So Snake River Farms, obviously they do chips. Those are fantastic. I can't say my own product, but they do a Wagyu beef jerky that is so good. I introduced that to my wife, and that might have been a problem. But yeah, it's absolutely delicious.
Yum. Again, my stomach. Okay, and then how about something outside of work that helps you recharge?
Yeah, my family, definitely. I've got such fun ages right now. My oldest is 13 and my youngest is 6. And as I mentioned, all daughters. I mean, they're an absolute delight. Yeah, I couldn't. I live in a fairy tale outside of potato chips. So
I love the new, like the phrase "girl dad."
Yeah.
And it sounds like you are a girl dad for sure.
I'm full on. I legit have the shirt that says girl dad.
Yeah.
So
I even love that. That's awesome. Your girls will be so happy that you have chosen to be such a great father. So that's awesome. Okay. How about a partnership that you couldn't do this without?
Oh, that's a great question. Like I've said all throughout the interview, the relationships are so important. Probably our number one partnership was with a local farmer. Yeah, it really actually a very cool experience for us. Cranny Farms is their name, and they're out of Oakley, Idaho. One of my favorite things about our company is we have had to raise money, but all of the money has come from local people in the state of Idaho, with our number one investor being a 5-generation farm. I mean, is there a cooler partner that you could have?
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great answer. All right. How about local places where people can get any of your products?
Just so you know, one of our first retailers was Zamzows, believe it or not.
Oh,
Yeah.
that was probably Kelly Rourke. He was our buyer for years and years. So I'm guessing that was probably him. That's awesome.
That was Kelly. Yeah. So cool story. As we were building the brand, we basically wanted to encompass everything cool about Idaho, everything that I love about Idaho, that people love about Idaho, and we wanted to do it with local partners. We even had a conversation with Kelly about putting a picture of Zamzows, like a Zamzows storefront, on the back of our bags, because at the time we were talking about, like, how do we just highlight everything Idaho, right? And that's another, you guys have a fantastic local company. And so... yeah, that didn't end up happening. We just have pictures of the state of Idaho. That could get complicated.
For sure. I could only imagine.
Yeah. But we still want that. We still want to just represent in a bag of chips, Idaho.
Yeah. But you're kind of everywhere. Like I feel like I see them. I was at Larkin Larder the other day. They had them. Where all could people go to get your product?
Yeah. Almost everywhere that you can find chips is where we're at. So our big ones, Albertsons, Winco, even Walmart. One of our favorites is Boise Co-op. In fact, if you're looking for our latest innovative products, go to Boise Co-op, because they've basically given us a license to sell, like James Bond, essentially. If we develop something, we can put it on their shelves. And they're just such a fantastic partner. Yeah. But genuinely, a lot of fantastic partners here.
Okay, well, it's time to ask that question at the end of the podcast that we ask everybody. Are you ready?
Ready.
Okay. What is something that nobody knows?
So I mentioned my daughters. This is kind of fun. So I actually come from a family of 6 boys.
Wow.
Yeah. So a large family, all boys. Bless my mom. She is a saint. So that's, what I say is I have learned a lot since getting married.
I bet. I can only imagine. So, and then for you to have all girls. Yeah, no, it's great though. It's I couldn't imagine it any other way. So that's a fun one. Yeah, that's very cool. My mother has only sisters. They're all sisters, and all the sisters had one child, and they were all boys. And my mom's the only one who had a second child, so I'm the only girl. So of a bunch of women who had mostly boys, I'm the one girl. So I've kind of been treated a little specially in the family because of that, which has been kind of cool. Anyway, it's amazing. It's kind of fascinating to think about those and just how we have to bend and learn, based on our own experiences versus what's coming at us. So yeah. Very cool. Thank you for being on the podcast. This has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you for making delicious chips. You've single-handedly made my trip to San Diego better this last quarter. So thank you for that. And thanks for encouraging entrepreneurs in the area and by just sharing your story so that people know that they can do things like you're doing. So thank you for that.
No, thank you. It was my pleasure to be here.
All right. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please follow the podcast and leave a review. Next week, we'll hear from another incredible voice shaping the Treasure Valley. And until then, thanks for listening.